So the big story provincially from the government this afternoon, Bernard Drainville's, I guess fair to say, surprise a tabling of Bill 23, which would basically give the government, the education minister, control over all the school boards. So starting with the French service centers, because apparently, according to Bernard Drainville, no one could do a better job than
I'm
he
sorry.
could.
What? He's doing a totally and completely mediocre
Yes.
job
Well, you'll
with
have to
the
take that up with him.
responsibilities he has now, and yet he wants more responsibility.
So the problem with this, if you extend it with sort of the Anglo side, is the fact that even though he was talking about the French boards, when asked about it, he mentioned, yeah, this would apply to the English side as well. Now, I should tell you, this bill was only introduced today. We don't necessarily have all the details, but Bernard Drainville, the education minister, was on with our colleague Maya Johnson over at CTV. I want you to hear part of that exchange, and then we're going to have Joe Ortona from the EMSB weigh in, because I'm guessing the English boards are not real thrilled with what they're about to hear. So listen to this.
I'd like to get to English school boards and how this bill would impact them, because we spoke to the head of the Quebec English School Boards Association. I'm going to quote him directly here, Russell Copeman. He says the bill is, quote, clearly further infringement on the constitutional rights of our community to control and manage our school system. He's calling the bill outrageous, and he says he plans to ask that English school boards not be included in this bill. Is this something you would consider?
No.
Okay, so it's
No.
very clear.
No. But, you know, the issue is before the court, right? The whole issue of the school boards is before the court, so I have to be extremely careful in how in the words I choose to describe the situation. But my position is that the bill that we've tabled today respects the rights of the English-speaking community. This is my position. This is our position. What I said after tabling the bill today was that I'm extremely sensitive to the issue of the English-speaking community rights. And I also said that the executive directors that I will be recommending for the government to appoint will be persons that will come from the English-speaking community.
Okay, so people with knowledge of the specificities of the system.
Correct. I'm extremely aware of the fact that this is something that is very, very important to the English-speaking community. So I do not want to be perceived as someone who's trampling on your rights. Quite the contrary. I believe that this bill respects the rights of the English-speaking community, but above and beyond that, it's a little tricky because of this case that is before the court at the moment, and we are waiting for the judge to render judgment on this whole issue of the school boards, as you know, Maya.
All right, so Maya Johnson with Bernard Drainville, that's literally only moments ago after the introduction of Bill 23. You may have heard in that little clip that she quoted Russell Copeman, who's the head of the Quebec English School Boards Association, as having called this bill outrageous. Joe Ortona is chair of the English Montreal School Board. Joe, you heard that little clip there. What's your reaction to what you know about this bill so far?
Wow. What a joke. I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. This is, of course, it's outrageous. It's another infringement of our right to manage and control. It's pretty cowardly to not want to talk about this too much because it's before the courts, but we continue to legislate about matters that are, pending before the courts, and we continue to erode the rights of English-speaking Quebecers more and more and more. But when we're asked tough questions about it, and we have to actually be accountable, well, we don't want to say too much and we want to, crawl somewhere and hide. It's all outrageous. It is all just... I don't know how to describe it. We have a judgment. There's supposed to be an injunction on the application of Bill 40 and the transformation of school boards to service centers. And, this is sort of like a complete and utter disregard of that. At least that's what it looks like to me. It seems that, they're not interested in even waiting. They could have said this doesn't apply to English school boards. They could have said, there may be a regulation in the future that it might apply to English school boards. We're going to wait and see what happens with the judgment. They just don't care. They don't care. I don't know if they're counting on us not fighting this. I fully intend to. I don't know where they would get this idea. We have so many court cases pending with them. I can tell you, we keep winning in court. It's getting pretty boring, but we're not going to stop. This is another infringement of our right to manage and control. To say that this bill respects the right of the English minority is an absolute and utter farce. This bill imposes how we manage and control the boards. School commissioners just become, rubber stampers for whatever the government wants to do. That's what this bill does. And then to come and claim that it respects the right of the English-speaking majority, listen, okay? If a man has a wife and he tells her how to dress, and he tells her when she can speak, and he tells her that her skirt is too short, and he tells her what to wear, okay? And that man says, well, I believe in equality of genders, and I believe in, women have the right to so and so and so and so on and so forth. Well, he may say that, but, he obviously is full of baloney. He's got the intelligence of a dustpan, and now I can say he probably has the integrity of a CAC minister. This is where we are. They're going to continue to erode our rights, and we're unfortunately going to have to continue to go to court because they don't understand anything else. They don't understand Section 23. They don't understand what our rights are, and they think they can tell us how to run schools, and they don't have that right.
Okay, so I think I understand how you
Well
feel.
said.
I'm sure a lot of other people within the system feel the same way. Joe, did you catch that part right at the end when he said that don't worry, because, if and when this happens, there would be people from within the English community who would be the ones to fill those seats the government wants to appoint them to?
Oh, very nice. I think he misses the point. Again, he doesn't understand Section 23. It's not about who's appointed. It's about who has the power to appoint. I would like Minister Drainville to tell me if the federal government came in and said, I think we should appoint provincial cabinet ministers. But don't worry, Quebec, we're going to appoint cabinet ministers from Quebec. So, we're respecting Quebec's democratic rights. I don't think Mr. Drainville would be all too pleased. I think he would say no. I think, Quebecers have the right to vote in an election. They elect a government, and then the premier gets to choose who the cabinet ministers are. It is the English-speaking community who chooses who the director generals are and who chooses who the employees are. It isn't the government who says, no, don't worry, we're going to pick them from the English-speaking community. But of course, we're going to make sure that we pick people who are going to do what we tell them to do and not what is necessarily in the best interests of the English-speaking community. If we tell them to transfer schools, to the French Service Center, we're just going to transfer schools to the French Service Center. And to hell with what the English community thinks. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's not how it's intended to work. That's not what the Supreme Court says about Section 23. And again, they're completely ignorant on this issue. And I know that sounds, impolite, but the time for politeness is over. They just keep trampling on our rights. I mean, it's getting ridiculous now. It's really, really getting ridiculous.
Okay, the last thing before we run out of time. So when this was announced today in Quebec City, or where the minister was, this is a question from Phil Oche at the Montreal Gazette. And the part that you brought up, Joe, which was, it seemed at the beginning that this was going to apply to the French service boards alone before the question was asked about English boards. Take a listen to this.
Does Bill 23 apply to the 9 Anglophone school boards of Quebec?
Yes.
The Quebec English School Board Association is in court fighting Bill 40.
Yep.
Do you not think this is going to give them, the opponents of Bill 40, more ammo, because Bill 40 takes away some of their powers, and now you're taking away even more? So I think you may discover that the English-speaking community is not very pleased with this.
Yes. As you can understand, Phil, with all your experience, I have to be very careful in how I phrase my remarks, because as you said, there is already a challenge before the court. But all I am going to say for today is that we are convinced that our bill respects the rights of the English-speaking community of Quebec. We're convinced of that.
What?
I'm not sure how 1 + 1 = 3, but
Yeah.
Joe, what do you make of that?
Look, the Quebec English School Boards Association, wrote to him, warned him not to do this. The English Montreal School Board adopted a resolution telling the government not to do this. I mean, again, I don't want to repeat what I said before, but the idea that this respects our community is just it's a joke. We're supposed to have elections. We are supposed to have commissioners who are accountable to the community. And who govern and make decisions that are in the interests of the community. It is not up to Bernard Drainville or anybody else for that matter, even an English-speaking minister of education, I would still feel the same way. It isn't up to a minister from Quebec City to come and impose how school boards are run. It doesn't work that way. That doesn't respect Section 23. And the fact that they would do this while we've been waiting for a judgment on the merits of Bill 40, it's almost 2 years now, and they're just going to continue to legislate as though we didn't just have this, this case before the courts, as if we're not waiting for a decision. They're governing as though Bill 40 passed and we lost in court. That's the way they're governing, and unfortunately, I don't see how we can not challenge this. We're not going to have a choice. We have to. You cannot appoint a person who is going to continuously be at odds with the elected members of the board and a director general who's not going to be accountable to the Council of Commissioners. I can tell you from recent experience, if our director general at the EMSB was not hired by the EMSB and didn't work for the EMSB, we would have lost a big chunk of land in TMR at Dunray Garden School because the service center wanted that land. The city was willing, the previous administration of the city of TMR was willing to transfer it over. The ministry said, well, yeah, if that's what you think is the best solution, sure, why not? And they couldn't understand why we were fighting back. Well, guess what? If the Director General was the employee of the ministry and the minister called and said, you're transferring that land over, I'd have to battle my own Director General and the administration of the board in order to preserve that land. It doesn't make any sense at all. They're just slowly trying to chip away at our rights. And at some point, we're going to get a judgment on Bill 40, and at some point we're not going to have a choice. We're just going to have to keep fighting these battles in court. It's unfortunate, but they're not even legislating in the gray area here. I mean, this is a clear violation of our right to manage and control. They have absolutely no idea what that means, or they just don't care.
So now yet another legal challenge. Here we go. You have to stay on Bill 40. You're going to have to fight to get a stay on Bill 23. This is time and energy that could be better spent elsewhere, Joe. It's got to be incredibly frustrating.
Absolutely. And you know what frustrates me the most? Obviously the violation to the constitutional rights of our community. But it's the fact that they keep trying to solve a problem that exists in the French sector and that they don't have the guts to admit that that's where the problem is and just go and attack that problem there. So they have to sort of have to lump us in because otherwise there's a few people in the more nationalist wing of the party or the more nationalist wing of their supporters that are going to say, well, why are you making exceptions for the English school boards? It's not the school boards that they were upset with that led to this bill. It's service centers who were making decisions for which the government wasn't happy with, and they said, okay, well, we're going to solve the problem now. We're just going to pass a law and make ourselves the bosses of the directors general. So when we're not happy, we're just going to pick up the phone and tell them, no, you're not doing this. This is what you're going to do. And they're lumping us in there with that. It's absolutely unnecessary. School boards are run well. We have higher success rates than they do in the French sector. Mm-hmm. The EMSB has never been in a better situation than it is today. I'm proud to say we worked really hard in this mandate to do two things. One, keep providing the services that we're providing to our students and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep them safe. We installed air purifiers. We've never cut in services to students. We keep adding to direct services in the classroom. And to preserve and reestablish the reputation of the good reputation of the EMSB, to make sure that it's where it should be, which is being a leader for the English-speaking community. That's what we've accomplished, and somehow, English school boards keep getting punished for the good work that they do, all to solve a problem that doesn't exist in our sector. It's their sector, it's the French sector that has all of the issues, but it's not politically, it's not suitable for them to admit that, so they want to just lump everybody in the same
I'll
boat.
say, as a parent in the English Montreal school board system, I appreciate that you keep up the fight. I find it frustrating that the energy has to be put into this when it could be so much better spent elsewhere.
Fully agree.